Florido, you can start now.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Um, I would like to introduce to you our distinguished lecturer for the Crisis Business Community Management. I just have to read how it is written here, so I cannot really introduce him on my personal capacity. So Engineer Robert Q. Mabulay is an electrical engineer by profession. He's actually a professional electrical engineer and currently holding a corporate position as proposal department manager with Technip FMC, a unique global leader in oil and gas projects, technologies, systems, and services. He is also holding the position CEO President of Caraba Incorporated, a company that provides innovative design, consultancy, construction, and global trading services based in the Philippines. He was awarded by PRC as the 2020 Outstanding Professional of the Year in the field of electrical engineering. He is a fellow member of Integrated Electrical Engineers of the Philippines Incorporated. He is a Grade A electrical engineer certified by MME, formerly MMUP in Qatar. He was conferred the ASEAN Chartered Professional Engineer and ASEAN Engineer by AFEO. Also a member of the ASEAN Engineering Inspectors Electrical Installation Committee representing PTC Philippines. He graduated cum laude with a Bachelor's of Science degree in Electrical Engineering from Divine World University in 1985. I would like to add that he is an active member of the AAPER. He was actually the one who organized the Middle East region by AEI and the first governor, a long-time governor of IAEE in the Middle East, representing I think 8 to 9 chapters, and also he is an advocate in promoting the ASEAN Engineer Registry, and also a mentor of so many ASEAN engineers. So with that, I would like to present to you Engineer Robert Mabulay to discuss on crisis business community management. Now, up to you, Chao Pong, or we go to now to Robert Mabulay.
I think we can go straight to Mabulay. I can do the closing later. No worries.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Flor, for that generous and very kind introduction. Am I audible to everyone? I hope so. Good morning, everyone. Morning to Philippines, Malaysia, and the rest of the ASEAN countries, and good day to other countries in the world. Of course, good morning to Qatar, where I'm sitting now, where I'm speaking from. So this morning, I'll be presenting to you a topic on the crisis business continuity management. I believe this is appropriate these days with the numerous crises happening, and for the electrical practitioners like us, we should be aware of what's going on around in terms of business continuity management. Before I start my presentation, allow me to greet, of course, our very own EER Head Commissioner and Chairman, Dr. Engineer Yao Chao Po, and at the same time, he is our ASEAN Engineer Inspector Electrical Installation Chairman, and Dr. Florico Barona, the Chairman and 2020 IIE-EPR Committee, and also a President and CEO of ISCA Knowledge Academy. At the same time, he is the AEI-EI official national representative from the Philippines. So once again, good morning. Before I start my presentation, let me give you an overview of how and why we should discuss, and I'm I'm sharing with you this topic on crisis business continuity. We all know that COVID has created a global health crisis, upended trade, halted travel, and confined much of the world population to their homes. So, and now we are reopening the economy's raises new question about what constitutes the new normal. As we go along with my presentation, you will notice it's not just the pandemic crisis that halted the economy, but there are some other cascading effects, and we will focus on the three major crises. So, crisis management plan is often embedded into the business continuity plan or vice versa. This is not an issue or a problem unless the execution and responsibilities are clearly delineated in the both plans. Business continuity management is a holistic management process for identifying potential impact from threats and for developing response plan. The objective to increase the organization's resilience for business disruptions and minimize the impact of such disruptions. So, in my presentation, we will be, by the end of my presentation, I will be able to share with you or convey the following. The nature of crisis we will be discussing today, the crisis incident management flow chart that will give you the incident management steps to undertake to deal with the situation of crisis, the organization to face the COVID-19, which is the appropriate organizations and tools to be used, expert tips in improving oil and gas business continuity program as it speaks, the global security management system, which includes the role and responsibility to ensure business operation measures and adequate incident and crisis management norms. We'll speak on the common and cascading incident and crisis management framework. Then we'll also discuss the business continuity plan, smart working actions, the home office back to work measures, on-site measures, and example. And last but not the least, we'll be sharing with you the smart working opportunities. This is the crisis learning into a long-term efficiency. So, speaking of the crisis, we are all aware that COVID or pandemic has really impacted the whole world. So, in COVID-19, this mainly impacts directly the employee and their families, the project, the logistics, the travel, and stalled global economy. Maybe you are also aware that it's not only COVID-19, though partly it is an impact or a cascading effect of COVID-19, but oil and gas price is an unprecedented, a double shock, both demand and supply, the dynamic situation. So it's really very tough this year, 2020. Aside from the pandemic, we have also experienced the crisis of the oil and gas, the unprecedented double shock of the oil and gas in the whole world. And as a cascading effect on this, we also have, of course, the financial market, which is also impacted. So financial market collapse, energy sectors, the hardest part has been impacting and tightening the liquidity. But how we should react, or what will be our reaction to focus with to control all these crises? Of course, with the COVID-19, we have to protect our people, the employees. We have to minimize the exposure in order to help flatten the spread of the virus. And of course, we have to continue the business continuity, to continue the business to sustain, especially most of us, like myself, I'm here in the Middle East for earning and working in a company. And For the oil and gas, the focus we should consider is the efficient execution of the projects. Of course, there will be some limited projects due to the impact of the oil price plus this pandemic, but we have to continue and to do our best to deliver the projects in hand. Remaining close to all our clients, of course, we have to provide and satisfy the requirements of our client to have a continuous, sustainable execution of project, then focus on the cost and cost. This is very important, especially in running companies. Now, for financial market, we should defer new business deal since the pandemic impact is controlling our travels and all these transactions. It is also appropriate to defer any business deals because of the low oil and gas price. Readiness of company. In spite of all these crises, we have to keep the company ready and sustain for existence. Then plan, prepare for the future. So these are the immediate reaction or the focus we should be in control due to these three main crises. So just to give you more flavor of the current situation of the COVID statistics worldwide, but before I proceed, I may just have some disclaimer that this information we're just taking from a reliable source from online, and this is not intended to criticize or to offend any involved countries, but just an information to substantiate the presentation. So imagine these are the figures of the coronavirus as of 2 days back. So if we look into the 10 ASEAN countries, we have here from Indonesia, Philippines, it is quite high where I come from, Myanmar, Malaysia, and Singapore. The number down below this represents ranking from all over the world impacted with this COVID-19. And we have also the Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Brunei, and Singapore. Some of the countries is proportionate to the population, but some others are really having very high rates of this COVID-19. Of course, in my home country, my work residence, Qatar, we have also these figures. The historical oil price. Let me share you also that this is the oil price. Historically, the oil price actually remains stable terms until 1970. But this year, you will notice that due to the COVID-19 and the confinement measures caused by this unprecedented contraction, the economy activity, and collapse in the demand of oil product, this result the biggest price shock of the energy market experienced since the oil stocks in 1973. The oil price dipped below $20 US a barrel, losing nearly 70% value with storage capacity approaching its limit of the oil. See, the impact of the oil price is due to the pandemic and the less demand usage. That another factor also is that this year the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, there were some issues that they didn't agree to control the production, or we could call it there is a so-called the oil price war between countries producing oil that contribute also to the drastic fall of the oil price. It's not mainly on the COVID pandemic that impacting. It coincides with the oil price war. As you will notice, less demand, more supply, and storage is increasing the storage cost that really impacting the oil price. So as a closer analysis, just imagine, look, in the month of April, this is the status of the oil price. So the price from the price really crashed into mid-February until April. So even it drops below zero for the first time in history. So as a result, of course, the financial market was impacted. Looking into the graph, explains itself, the movement. So this from December 2019 and March 2020, showing all times high February and crashed February and March during the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is the result, the impact of this pandemic plus the oil price, oil and gas price. So moving forward, crisis incident management flowchart. So when we experience crisis, we should know how to deal it step by step. So first is, of course, we have the preparation, the response, and to recover. So as part of the preparation, business analyze all the rest, assess the situation, then strategize the plan to develop. Then we have to implement the actions and do some training and exercise the plans and the proposition how to mitigate the crisis incidents. Then we have, of course, to do the audit and review. Then incidents become or some emergency response, take action. So as part of crisis management, we have to deal with the media, declaring the resources and all the market decisions, interacting with the stakeholders and staff. Now, as a part of the business recovery, the invocation of business continuity plan to recover the critical business process and the damages to repair. So this is the crisis and incident management flow chart. Now, going into the organized to face the COVID-19, companies has to ensure that business continuity with their appropriate organizations and needed tools. So to face the COVID-19, companies should have to introduce the enterprise resources planning to integrate the work centers, which is a very important for certain companies to sustain. So enterprise resource planning is a business process management software that manages and integrates the company financial, supply chain, operation, reporting, and manufacturing, and human resources activities. Then we have to use the intranet, the remote access of the virtual private network. Then the 3D models with remote access. We should also introduce the electronic data management system or its equivalent, material management system. We have also the other software equivalent to this one, like SAP, the construction management system for an easy plan. So these are the companies the companies should have this to ensure that the business continuity while facing the COVID-19. Now, there are some expert tips to improve oil and gas business continuity program. First is to have the data availability accuracy, which is it establishes the ready availability and accurate up to the date response information proven limit the duration of emergency. This faster continuity process can be assessed and as sooner the business continuity procedures can be implemented. Critical business function also can be restored and business as usual operation can be established. Then we have the training. Of course, business continuity training program that includes crucial personal experience, leadership, the best practice guidelines, and the proper documentation to establish the process with the implementing plans. And we have to exercise to implement, to provide a setting of the business continuity plan, the real world exercise scenario that can often highlight the potential deficiencies of the business continuity plan process and procedures, the comprehension of individual roles and responsibilities of partnerships and coordination. Next, we have the accessibility. Accessibility, the web-based BCP offers a secured accessibility option to stakeholders and auditors and employees. With web-based technology and internal connection, immediately and securely available without version confusion for typical or in other formats. Proceed further, we have also the collaboration. Collaboration is very important. That is, the business continuity program effectiveness can be optimized through efficient interoperability and partnership. So, when with the various organizations working together with a greater good response expertise can dramatically broaden the recovery time and minimize. Auditing is also one of the tips to improve the oil gas business continuity program. Whether conducted by in-house or professionals or experienced consultants that can reveal the planning inadequacies and mitigation opportunities. We have also the mitigation itself. This are the adverse condition in a process or ineffective procedures to pose the risk to employee, to infrastructures, the critical business unit. By eliminating mitigation risk, companies can reduce the potential for business continuity situation. Then we have the best practices implementation, doing right the first time, of course. So applying the best practices to business continuity program enable to manage, to leverage the past experience and means to improve planning effort for future impacting scenarios. So, for global security management, this is where we clearly define the role and responsibilities to ensure business operation measures are adequate and the response of management to the event classified according to the levels with the dedicated chain of command. So, moving forward, the pre-crisis preparedness has to be defined. So, meaning you have to ensure that all sites comply with the crisis management and requirements and principles. You have to identify the train dedicated resources, ensure readiness of crisis management plan, the personnel deployed to remote location. We have also, during crisis, to respond and manage, and ownership of the local crisis management organization to handle crisis response. We have to support from executive and general management to handle the crisis. Guidelines from group executive to manage for global response. Then we have the post-crisis transition. So upon crisis resolution, to transfer the residual issues resulting from the event of the situation unit, then we have to manage and resolve issues. This is priority in order to return to normal operation. The incident and crisis management norms. So common and as cascading incidents and crisis management framework that aims to protect the personal environment and reputation, maintain critical operation and reduce the impact and return to the normal business operation as quickly as possible. So there are 3 steps there, which I will be sharing with you. First is the response team's structure and composition. So response teams organized at a local level for each site. For each crisis management role, a primary and alternate employee is designated to ensure continuity in case of prolonged crisis or to take into account absence. Then we have to prepare and manage. So we have to identify the risk assessment, the local legal requirements, the previous incidents that occurred at site. I'm very much specific. It's like implementing projects. So plan, develop, and implement cascading plans, procedures that are aimed to containment and resolution. Then, of course, train and exercise the crisis management team. The third is to recover and transition. So recover management taking into accounts the financial, the legal, the regulatory environment, the reputational and emotional consequences arising from the incident. The incident or the crisis only concluded when all set of objectives are met and outstanding issues have been dealt with accordingly. For business continuity plan, I'll be citing some business continuity plans as actual situation with plus smart work actions. So, fortunately, with the years of successful deployment of digital and smart working, we were been able to properly react to COVID-19. These are common and very practical, but really essentials how a business continuity plan has to be prepared. The human resources from home implemented. So we have the so-called work from home, like in the case of the situation in Qatar. The first mandate from the government was to have companies, except oil and gas, have 80% of their employees to work from home and 20% only in the office or as a face-to-face work activities to help mitigate the spread of the coronavirus. Then the organization communication, which is very important. You should have frequent virtual town hall or people meeting focus, people policy, and decentralization. Then we have the product development, the productivity monitoring, the remote engineering reviews, supplies, interfaces, and plan evaluation. I'm doing the pilot on my presentation as like a company, an EPIC engineering, an engineering company giving services. So building and facilities. And building, you have to maintain the official distances ensured, then the presence and health monitoring. Like most of your companies, I understand that before the employee enters into the offices, they have to monitor the temperature, make sure that they are wearing the mask and maintaining the distancing using the elevators. And then we have the IT technology, which is also very important. The use of Microsoft Teams, all these platforms now to avoid face-to-face activities and other collaborative tools supporting or support and assistance, the training and good practices sharing. The next is the side yard activities, like the projects, which are there are some site activities, so you have to rebalance the person's site with remote office activities, remote expert collaboration with virtual visits, the remote inspections presence, and remote auditing. That is for a smart working action. And for home office back to work measures, we have also this, because to ensure that all measures are are fully implemented, we have the so-called social distancing. So modified hours to manage density of then occupancy control, building markup and signage. We have to also implement the meeting rooms, use limitations, proper distancing, lobby controls, access lines and circulation flow. The elevator, as I said a while ago, depends on the size. Certain number of people should come together when using the elevators. Then those pantries or kitchen schedule, circulating and distancing measurements. These are all practical but very effective way. So hygiene and sanitary, offices cleaning and sanitation or sanitizing every day, elevator regular cleaning, air conditioning system cleaning, sanitize available at each floor. Then we have the health protection. Of course, people considered at the risk to be listed and requested to stay home. Intensive communication concerning return to workplace and process flow, sanitizers and masks supply every day, temperature scan, wearing masks in common areas and meetings. Now for on-site measures and examples, let me share with you this. Of course, the social distancing is still there, so on-site personnel reduction shift modification to manage busing density, the craft face visors, not only the mask, the availability of audit teams, so somebody has to monitor policing the social distancing requirement, otherwise people sometimes are hard hit. So canteen management should be some arrangement. What when someone is sick, contact tracing drill conducted, and then constant monitoring and guidance to continuous evolve response with most of the to-date facts. Of course, the remote experts inspection, so the conduct of factor acceptance test, do it remotely, HSC virtual visits. So there are some safety studies that could be done remotely. Construction progress and inspection check by virtual site visits. Then the transferring of activities from site to yard to home offices, work from home. So subcontract administration activities should be taken care, planning and cost control, materials approvals, the field engineering and management, technical queries. Of course, there are so many means now, there are so many platforms to communicate, to administration and preparation of pre-commissioning and commissioning procedures. So those are the three business continuity plan, the home office, the smart working actions, and the on-site measure samples. Now, if you will notice, the impact of the COVID is not just all adversities. There are also some other things that we learned from this pandemic that keep us moving forward, learning something and be more efficient. So for smart working opportunities, we convert the last crisis learning into a long-term efficiency. As we all know, all technologies, actions, and strategies were already in place, but were further tested and developed during the crisis and will be enhanced in the future with the following focuses. So there are so many practices and lessons learned or what we have been doing to prepare while we are facing with this crisis that it could be considered as a learning into a long-term efficiencies. Like for example, first one is the e-signature. So we are talking here of the legal binding secure electronic signature. It's also the e-signature policies can position the organization to reduce the PFAR substantially. Then we have the remote meeting, workshop review, and collaboration tools. So there are a lot of platforms these days, the best video conference softwares and hardwares, and few to mentions like Google's Hangout, Skype, which is now part of the Micro Teams, the Adobe Connect, and etc. And we have also the inspection activities remote attendance technology. So the best alternative of face-to-face, there are so many options for team collaboration. The economic requirement and work monitoring at home, the agronomics is also one of the very important consideration that could be brought into a long-term efficiency and a good result of practices. The continuous monitoring of smart working evolution is one of the learning things we should practice in a long-term for an efficient long-term efficiencies. So continuous monitoring for smart working evolution, this includes like the supplier selection, developing and approval of suppliers, auditing suppliers, the measures of suppliers' performance, and the supplier development, to include also the supplier management, and so on and so forth. So these are the lessons learned or the practices we have been doing with this pandemic situation that we could consider as a long-term efficiencies for us, which we could say we work smarter but not harder. So we ensure business continuity during crisis, and we're even more prepared to do in the event of a next crisis. So with all these mitigations, steps in preparing the crisis, preparing how to mitigate and to sustain the operation of the companies, we could be better to face any crisis we will encounter in the future. That ends my presentation, and if you have some questions, I'll be more than willing to answer or try my very best to explain.
Thank you, Robert, for your presentation. I'm still looking at the questions. Maybe there are, but I would like to start with a question like, in your business continuity plan, what do you think will be the focus? Restorative, which means going back to business as usual, or new normal? What would be the directions of the continuity plan?
Yeah. In the meanwhile, we could make it a mixture of the restorative and the new normal, because we cannot avoid that there are still the old practices, the classical practices that's more efficient, then adapt a portion of that with the new normal, which I'm also convinced that those are the new normal things which cannot be avoided to ensure the business continuity. So it's a mix between the two.
Yeah, okay. Now, there are a lot of challenges in this business continuity plan. You have mentioned about the data availability and accuracy, training, exercises, accessibility, collaboration, auditing, mitigation, best practices. Now, what do you think from these are the most challenging focus that you have encountered?
Generally, the most challenging part is the implementation, putting it into actions. These are just the steps that will guide you, but the important thing is that the implementation. So there's something about the human factor, how you manage, how you impose, how the people will implement. But generally speaking, this work hand in hand, but it's mostly on the implementation that will matter most.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the questions. Bali, can you help me? I have not seen any question here. But while waiting for that, I would like to follow up another question, which is basically like in the data availability and accuracy. How do you ensure that the data is available? Is that on a real time or something that that the data is available on an interval of time?
Yeah, okay, thank you. So as I said, establishing readily available and accurate data, it can be up-to-date response information, which is every company, I think they are using these systems of the different database to have the information available. And we have also the on-time data, which is we have this so-called remotely collecting data directly from site. These are also some platforms or softwares available these days, especially for the engineering companies, which they are using for such data availability and accuracy.
So is this basically a cloud platform? You have mentioned about VPN. This is the
yes. Yeah, it can be used also, yes, through cloud platform. And there are some others, other equivalent softwares that could help, or some tools to collect the data remotely on the spot. And of course, there are also through bases.
Yeah, okay. There's another question now. This is basically on the training aspect. It would be challenging to really train on a certain activity. Unlike lecture, you can really do it on a webinar. How do you handle some workshops in order to train the people, particularly in addressing the crisis, which are basically an activity related, or I do units, not the no units. How did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, for training, as we all know, the main thing here is to avoid the face-to-face. Of course, there are so many tools or platform of conducting training, but workshop. The other techniques here also is to collaborate with the other agencies. That the training should be designed to minimize the impact of personal operation infrastructures. So you have to liaise or have a collaboration with the training provider, wherein they could also optimize the workshop activities to ensure that you could mitigate the need for a face-to-face. So add more audiovisuals and other means of keeping the trainee aware and easily digest of what they are trying to convey. Because in fact, this is a big struggle or a challenge considering the mandate of the respective government regulations. Like for example, in Qatar, until now, we cannot hold some activities more than 15 persons in a row. So those are the challenges. We really have to maintain and respect those guidelines from the government. So you need to collaborate with the training providers, and of course the training providers, they are focusing into that business these days, so they have to enhance all their workshop activities with all means that they could easily provide the necessary information and data to the training.
Yeah, you have some additional questions?
I have some additional questions to Engineer Robert. Maybe just one. We notice also on the vast usage of digital signature during this pandemic. Maybe just a question. Is there any concern, especially on security, that you would think of, especially on the digital signature? Do you all have additional encryption and so on that we could actually follow on? So
Correct. So it's not just simply doing the electronic signature that you can just simply scan and fix the signature. If you will notice these days, the electronic signature is also, the date is embedded. The date is embedded, and there's a process of authenticity. There are so many controls now how you could authenticate the e-signature. So it's not simply because it's still, of course, it's fraud is very uh, uh, common if you will just simply have it a scan. But there are so many ways of authenticating the signatures. First is there is the so-called, you can fix the signature with the date, and there's some certain procedures that could help authenticate and protect against fraud.
Follow-up question, Joe?
Of course, the follow-up question on this is, of course, digital nature, and the other one is, of course, about contracts. In Middle East, of course, it's just to learn. Of course, in some countries like Malaysia, we still can travel. But what about contracts? Would there be any physical contracts, or it would be more on a soft copy contract now between parties?
Yeah, correct. So actually, contract, of course, it will be a mutual between the both parties. So you have to agree the scheme, considering the situation now. So as we mentioned, of the authenticity of the signature is one thing, and of course you have to amend, put some provision that both parties are in agreement of this kind of scheme of e-signatures. But provision, of course, the main thing of contract is the mutual agreement with the two parties. Now, in terms of the signatures and all these kind of things due to the current situation that cannot be also mutually agreed, and there are some certain way to secure and to implement the authenticity of signatures. So it's not an issue these days also.
Okay. And then, of course, the other question is a very general question. We know that the pandemic is still there, and of course, we are not too sure when will it end. But what do you think 2021 would be, especially on business? I mean, of course, there's no right or wrong, but what would you envision that in 2021 would have?
That's a good question that everyone is really looking forward to get the correct answer. But looking into the situation, having been able to adjust with the pandemic, and if you will notice also, the OPEC countries have already reached into an agreement. There are some adjustments on the production, and little by little, people now try to diversify, try to keep things moving. So usage of oil are there. So the trend is really to be more positive in the coming years, especially vaccine also is there. So it's more on the positive side of the forecast, or the looking forward, the look ahead of the business and the economy. It's more on going up rather than going down. In fact, there are some also, expectation that, okay, second wave may happen, but since we already experienced the first one, we will know how to control, we will know how to be prepared and apply those experimental or these experiences, how we mitigate the situation crisis.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a question. This is about security issue, Robert. So the question is, majority were not prepared when the COVID-19 started. So how did you mitigate the security issue in your company?
First, of course, is, yes, that's a good question. First, of course, is the communication. It's the first thing, is the communication, that the proper dissemination. Of course, respective companies has its own management addressing all the security issues. But the most important is the communication. Communicate to the employee, because most of what is happening is that due to miscommunication, it increases the pressure, the tension of the people, and concluding something which is not even, it's inappropriate, we could say. So communication. Of course, the next is the use of this fast innovating technology. We have it in our respective companies, maybe those companies that are already having but need to innovate or to improve, to enhance their IT system. This is one thing. And the third one I could consider is really the audit or the monitoring system. The monitoring system that would really control and help enhance, because yes, we're not expecting this to happen. So of course we have some experts to be tapped and to address or to help us address those kind of things. So communication, use of technology, and the monitoring. Those are the three that I could consider. I hope I was able to answer the question.
Yeah, follow-up question with respect to security issue, but focusing on information security. So, what is the most secure platform? Others actually uses the group chat in Facebook, others Viber, maybe WhatsApp, and so on. So, do you have some recommendation? What will be the
that will be my okay. Yeah. Yes. I may say that this is my personal opinion because I don't want to promote companies providing this platform. But in my company, we are using in Teams for the reason that it's secured. It's highly secured. Of course, it's a corporate, cost-wise, it's a little bit expensive. But we have noticed that security or being secured, the MS Teams is the main reason our company have chosen that.
Yeah, that's also my personal experience also. I'm using that also, but I'm not promoting. No, basically, you can actually see the workers, what they're doing, what particular they're opening, and so on, where their communication, the IP address, like that. So that's about information security. Now, follow-up question again. This is about the managing the work from home activity of the personnel. So you have mentioned that 80% of your personnel are working from home and 20% from the office. How do you manage effectively the staff that are working from home?
Yeah. First thing is, of course, we have to equip them with the tools. So we were able to provide them some laptops or some desktop which is connected to the home office using VPN, those kind of access. So we have to really invest the IT. We have to provide them all laptops. And the big challenge is, like for us, we're an engineering consultants and contracting company, is the 3D model, those heavy data to process. These are really the challenge. But yes, the first thing is to equip them, of course, orient them with the proper knowledge and usage, and equip them with the tools, give them the laptop, improve the Wi-Fi and all this, the accessibility, those kind of things, and orient the people working, because some employee we can't avoid. It's just easy when you are in the desktop, open and just the password. When we are at home, you have to click more things to be more familiarized. So these are the very important things also. You have to educate the people, enhance or improve, provide them the proper tools, those kind of things. And of course, as a part of that, you have to equip even simple as the headphone for convenience. And we also try to let them implement the ergonomics. It's not just be at home and just sitting there and looking into the screen. So you have also to be focus on to the health and well-being of your employees.
Yeah, another follow-up question, but this is more focused on the supplier process qualification. So, of course, we do not have any control on our supplier. How do you ensure that your requirements are being complied? Since at this point in time we have this pandemic.
Yeah. Is it in terms of the delivery or to secure the information and data? Because in terms of the security, of course, these days there are so many platforms also. In fact, I think some of the most of are familiar with SAP. We are also familiar with Ariba. In fact, not only in procurement, like in proposal and tendering, now we have been practicing submitting tenders and proposal online. And there are so many software or platforms now used, like very highly secured, the Ariba. There are so many other platforms. Now, in terms of delivery, it is a very big challenge because, of course, the mobility and then the transport limitations. Like, for example, in the case of Qatar, there was some period of time that no incoming vessels or airplanes are allowed. It's just for going out, those kind of things. But as we go along, experts are there to be laced, and we analyze the situation, and of course, the bright boys are there intended for that kind of analysis and study and how to improve the situation.
Okay, another follow-up question on that, but this is basically on the supplier side, wherein there's a need for them to inspect or to see exactly or to assess some physical aspect in the site. So, do you have any protocol how they will do that?
Yeah, we have certain protocols, but in terms of the technology, we have so many ways now to do it remotely, and the ultimate one is the use of drone. Also, our company has been using that for some inspections, the drone, and we have some other software or platforms used to inspect remotely, make sure that we could visualize what's there on the side, what is delivered. In fact, we are doing pre-commissioning activities remotely these days also. There are so many platforms now.
Yeah, we still have 3 minutes more before 11:30. This is my personal question. Can you elaborate further your virtual inspection? How do you do that?
Virtual inspection, like for example, in the platforms that are remotely, we have the provision of like a camera, or there are some platforms which is manned. Then they have to video, or we are using of course for structural purposes we have the 3D models. We have that, but then we put some cameras aside from the drone. We put some cameras there, and then it is remotely connected with the home base, the office base. This kind of communication is available, and first is the 3D models is available, so if it is, you can easily visualize that the activities in this portion of the platform, and then we have some platforms that are manned, so he can have the video, the camera, and remotely it's also monitored in our office, and there are more high tech process also to monitor installing such cameras in the area where the activity is being done, which is monitored in the offices.
Okay, we don't have any more questions. Yao, do you have follow-up questions?
So far, no. There's one question from the back box from Mr. Montifa. Let me open up the question. I think there's few. Is business continuity plan the answer for business discontinuity? Tough question.
Very tough. Huh? Is discontinuity plan an answer to discontinuity? That's what. Of course, in all endeavors, it's not 100%. Successful. There are always some shortcomings. So maybe discontinuity may happen, but we can use it like a circumstance that could help you open the window and be more proactive with those kind of shortcomings. That's how I would rather tell that kind of scenario. Yeah, yeah. So we are always looking forward of a very successful, positive results. We can't avoid there are some shortcomings. So use that discontinuity as a lessons learned to open up your mind or a window where you can improve and to avoid occurrence in future. That's how I could answer the question.
Okay, we don't have any more questions. I would like to have you the opportunity, Robert, to say the last, your final word.
Yeah, of course. Thank you to Dr. Flor and Dr. Yao Champong, and all others who are been involved in this preparation, organizing this webinar. And to all participants, I hope this is not the first, but just the beginning of sharing with you the knowledge of the members of the IIEE, the PTC, and most especially in my case, wherein I'm based in Qatar, in the Middle East. So the Middle East region is very much more than willing also to share some of the talents or the knowledge which we have here to the other part of the world. And I would like also to clarify that why Middle East, which is we are not part of the ASEAN countries. Of course, geographically, we are not part of ASEAN countries, but if you will notice, there are millions of engineers working here coming from the ASEAN countries. It is the bread and butter, it's working with companies, and why we are very much impacted because Middle East, as you know, the bread and butter is the oil and gas. So mostly of the company, directly or indirectly, are relying on the oil and gas price and stability. So of course, like the campaign of the professionals, it should continue because even if we are in Middle East now, ultimately we'll be going back home to our home country, which I, for one, belong to the ASEAN countries. So these are all the things I would like to share. And once again, thank you very much for the organizing committee. Thank you for those who participated, and keep safe, everyone, and have a blessed Saturday to all.
Yeah.
Any last
Okay.
word?
Yeah, just a final words. Thank you very much to our speaker today, Engineer Robert, who is actually at I think waking up very early for this particular webinar, just to suit the ASEAN engineers, because their time is actually at just now was about 5:30 when we started. So now it's about 6:30. So it's a very early morning for Engineer Robert. And of course, Dr. Florigo as well from PTC as well as IIEE for coordinating as well as accepting to be the moderator today. This will be the, of course, the end of our seminar, webinar as well for 2020. And because we will have a Christmas break and New Year break after this, we have actually conducted numerous webinars ever since I think April. I think we have about 15 to 20 webinars, and we're going to close 2020. But of course, we are looking forward for 2021 as well, and we have more and more upcoming webinars to come. And of course, we will also involve our counterpart from Middle East, where I believe ASEAN engineers would like to hear more from the Middle East as well, and also the opportunities coming up in 2021. And last but not least, before I end the session today, we have e-certificate presentation to, of course, our speaker of the day, our resource person, Engineer Robert Mabulay, as a speaker today, as well as not forgetting Dr. Florigo, my good friend from IIEE and PTC as well. So once again, thank you very much for attending today's webinar, our ending 2020 webinar, and we'll look forward for 2021. And before I end, once again, Merry Christmas for those who are celebrating, and a Happy New Year to all, and also a happy holiday. We'll be back in 2021 for more webinars, for more of our ASEAN ASEAN Engineering Inspectors Electrical Installation Working Group events. So once again, we sign off. Dr. Florigo, maybe final word from you, from the moderator.
Yeah, we have more than 100 participants, maybe more than 200 already, coming from more than 18 countries. Thank you very much for attending the seminar. We will invite you again for our future seminars. Now we are signing off. Bye-bye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you, Robert.
See you. Merry Christmas.